How do you become a strong dungeon master? You do push-ups and you lift heavy things. I mean, obviously that's kind of a joke, but we'll figure out what the real answer is from our friend today, Jay Foster from Swole Initiative. Welcome back to How to Be a Better DM. I'm Justin Lewis. I'm one of your hosts, and the goal of this podcast is to put those mythic D&D sessions that you see on YouTube that you dream about, to put those within your reach, to make it attainable to you without forcing you to spend a lifetime learning extra stuff or spending extra money or losing all of your other relationships and hobbies. Like, we want this to be possible. And today, like I said, we are joined by another guest, actually a returning guest, which is very fortunate for us because the first conversation was just so chock full. I had more questions about what we talked about. And among other things, today we're going to talk about what it means to be a strong DM and theme and probably some other stuff. But Jay, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. I really, like I said, I enjoyed our first conversation. And honestly, in doing podcasting, there's been a number of times, we were just talking about one where I've had a guest on the show and something didn't really work out, so I have to have them back on the show. But other times I've brought guests back because I really enjoy the conversation, and I've always found conversations 2, 3, down the line, they seem to get maybe more deep. I don't know. It just, you reach kind of new levels. So I'm interested to see what we find today. Before we get to the meat of our conversation, we actually have a new segment. What's your monster? And this segment is sponsored by our friends, WorldSmith. And what WorldSmith is it's a tool for the dungeon master who doesn't have a ton of time, right? You can pop in prompts for their generators to create something for you, and then from there you can customize it to what you actually want it to be. Usually whenever I create something there, I have this general idea, I don't necessarily know how to make it work, and then they give me some stats, and then from there I get to tweak saying, oh no, this is a 4, not a 5, this is a 2, not a 1, and so forth. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to ask you some get to know you questions, and then we're going to generate a monster with those questions for you. So, are you ready?
As I'll ever be, I guess.
Excellent. I'm actually going to share my screen so you can see what I'm doing, and also you can read it.
I better put my glasses back on
No,
then too.
I mean, you don't have to. Okay, so let me share my screen, and boom. First question is, how old were you when you first started playing D&D?
I was, math. It's not even that long ago. I would have been, when did I start? Yeah, so like 31, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. 31. Great. And next question. If your parents had to describe you in high school, describe your teenage self using the D&D 5e monster classifications, what classification would they give your teenage self?
That's a really good one. I was really skinny in school, so I kind of want to go with goblinoid, but I had a massive attitude to go with it, so maybe a monstrosity.
Monstrosity. I love it. Excellent. All right. Next, what is the farthest distance you've moved in your life?
Farthest distance I've moved?
Mm-hmm.
Like
your dwelling.
Just in general?
No, like your house. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Farthest distance.
Yeah, I guess I moved from Australia to the USA, so that was pretty far because I went via Wales, so that's the long way around.
Jeez.
So, however long that is, I don't know.
Australia to the US.
Australia to Wales to the US.
That's nuts. So, okay. Yeah, I'm going to say, okay. And then if your most recent D&D group that you've DM'd for had to describe your DMing style using alignment, what alignment would they have given your last session?
Ooh. That's such a good question. I think the last session,
Or
last
just
session
the
was pretty
general
intense.
campaign?
Yeah, no, the last session was pretty intense and it had a lot of like political stuff going on, a lot of answers coming out. So maybe like lawful neutral.
Lawful neutral. Interesting. Okay. And what
I found out
hobby?
the distance as well if you want that.
Yeah, I'd love it, actually.
It is 19,440 miles.
Okay. And how,
Is that my
what
hit points?
is the circumference of the Earth? Okay. So you went 19,000 miles. So the circumference of the Earth is 24,000 miles, which is pretty crazy that you went that far. And I'll reveal which questions pertain to what at the end. But
Oh, okay.
what hobby have you always wanted to try but never have?
Ooh. These are really good questions. I'm not sure if I. You know what? Playing the drums or piano. I think
Interesting.
those are two that have come up. I play guitar, but I'm self-taught, so I've got that whole like I'd have to start from scratch because I've got no theory.
Theory's a
So
bugger,
that's
isn't it?
kind of kept me at bay. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love. So it's funny you say that. I actually grew up playing the piano, and I was in percussion in elementary, junior high, high school. So I was never good at the drum set, but uh, it's funny because the guitar always seemed like something I'd like to learn too. Okay. Uh, in that case, yeah. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do for that one. And then, how many bones have you broken in your life?
I'm
Your
gonna
bones. Your bones.
yeah. I was gonna say, is this how public is this? I'm gonna knock on wood because it's a
Ooh,
goose egg. 0.
great. Okay, just four more questions, and these ones are going to be a
Okay,
little bit more rapid fire. What's a fun
let's
fact?
go.
What's a fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Most people don't know. I was well, we were just talking about it. I was a sign musician, and I toured a lot. So, yep, I've been on several compilation EPs with a bunch of like bigger bands and stuff. And yeah, that
Okay,
was another life.
I love it. Okay, next one.
Or if you prefer, I'm actually a diamondologist. I'm qualified diamondologist with the Diamond Council of America,
What
so I
is?
can grade diamonds.
Oh, oh, interesting.
So whichever one you find, that's probably less known.
No, I love it. Okay, what's your go-to comfort food if you have one?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I might not use that one. Okay, and if money wasn't an issue, what would you spend your working hours doing?
Creating. I would still create. It's what I've always wanted to do, and I'm really, really lucky that I get to do it in many different ways. Whether it's like video work, music, like storytelling, like I get to do it a lot of it. So
I
yeah,
love it. Okay, last question. Do you have a bucket list? If so, what's one item on that bucket list?
I do not have a bucket list because I have crippling indecision with my ADHD. So, but something that I would absolutely want to do. Um, mm, Work on a movie.
Ooh. What would you do on the movie? Just anything?
Uh, Either editing, uh, like cinematography, camera work, or camera facing.
Okay. I hit the generate button. We'll see what comes up. Uh, this is going to be our first time doing this, and
Oh,
we'll
am I the
see.
first one?
Yeah, you're the first one, so we'll see how this goes. So, you are Harmony Draconis, a gargantuan monstrosity, lawful neutral. This is your description. In the heart of pastoral lands, the Harmony Draconis stands as an awe-inspiring blend of natural beauty and sonic majesty. This gargantuan creature, resembling a dragon intertwined with instruments, produces melodious tunes that echo through the winds, enchanting and terrifying those who hear it. Scales glisten like diamonds, reflecting the sun. That's super cool. So your actions, first of all, you have as a feature Sonic Mastery. You can shape sonic attacks to avoid hitting allies, giving them advantage on saving throws against its sonic attacks. You have innate spell casting, where you can cast at will, sleep, silent image. Also, your challenge rating is 9, and you can cast three times a day shatter or enthrall, and 1 time a day suggestion. You have multi-attack, and you have a resonance strike, which is a melee weapon attack. It does sonic damage and the potential to deafen targets, which is pretty cool for 1d4 rounds. As well, you have the Diamond Crescendo, which emits a blinding flash of diamond light from scales, affecting all creatures within 60 feet, and it can entrance them with your music for 2 rounds. And that is your monster. Pretty cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. You know what's really cool is that the dragon is the national animal of Wales.
Oh, that's
It's
right.
on the flag.
That's right. That's so crazy. I love that. Okay, I'm going to send you the link afterwards. But thank you for
cool. Thank you.
Thank you for playing that quick segment with us. Now our audience knows you a lot better because they know what kind of monster you are. Now let's get into the actual meat of today's conversation. So, obviously, last time we talked a lot about theme, and in my opinion, theme is kind of one of those harder things to get right in your games. So, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes people or general dungeon masters have when trying to pick and implement a theme in a game that is fulfilling?
Okay, yeah. I would say the obvious one is not having one. Or not knowing what it actually is, I should say. You'll have a theme in your story, whether you know it or not. But not realizing what it is would probably be the first one. I think if you're trying to establish a theme, you need to know where you're going, right? So you need to kind of have like an end game in mind, even if it's not kind of decided, like what is exactly going to happen. You kind of have to have like your evil force, your big bad, like whoever you are coming up against, and sort of the actions that they have taken to get to that point. Because I feel like that influences the theme a lot, right? Because that's how you can start exploring things, because then you have something that is constantly exploring that theme the whole way through the game, right? Like we spoke about my stream game Fables of Gallia, and the overall theme being fate, and there's the big bad is doing a lot of things to manipulate fate. So that was my theme established, and then I went back to my my players, my characters. I went back to my players, and I got a hold of their character's perspective on fate, even if they didn't know it. So yeah, not having an end game, not realizing what the theme is, and I guess not really, although you can get into it, not really knowing what your character's perspective on the theme actually is. You can learn that. And sometimes characters aren't fleshed out enough, like early on, for you to get that. But yeah, I would say that one as like honorable mention.
I love it. Also, I didn't realize that I was sharing my notes with you until just now, which is great.
I didn't open the screen anyway, so
Well, that makes me feel good. Makes me feel good. The YouTube viewers will get a nice little Easter egg there. Um, regardless, so I love that you said you will have a theme whether you know it or not. So obviously, the kind of the follow up question is, how do you discover the theme if you have been playing for a while and you haven't noticed one, or you've kind of been unaware of the theme? And actually, maybe we should back up, but to kind of give some base level groundwork, would you mind defining what you mean by theme?
yeah. So a theme in story writing is I was going to say the theme. Let's not use the word that I'm trying to define. Is the overall point of view, let's say, like that we are exploring. So I think last time I gave you the example of war being a theme, and so you would explore the character's perspective on that, like their point of view on that subject, that's the word I was looking for, in order to kind of have character development through that. So their opinions can shift and move and things, and you get a lot of character development that way. But yeah, that's the like super high level look, is like the subject that you're going to explore through your characters.
I love that. So with that definition, back to my previous question, let's say you're going through a campaign, you're kind of unaware of this idea of theme, and now you want to try and see what theme you've had. How do you go about finding that?
I hope you've taken some notes. And then I would base it on, like, the first place I would look is the actions of your big bad. So whether they've interacted or not, because like in Fables right now, they've not interacted with the big bad once. Well, that they know of at least. But there's been no direct, like, oh, big bad right in front of us and we know that's that person, right? So I would explore the actions that big bad has been taking in the background, or in the foreground maybe. But the background might actually be a bit more interesting to explore, because those background moves are going to have knock-on effects on the world, and then have knock-on effects on your characters, right? Because you're intrinsically tying those two groups together, like your evil force and your what's the word? Like heroes, protagonist. So that's where I would look first, and I would kind of just explore the sort of actions that they're taking to get where they want to be as well, regardless of what the player characters are doing. What is the ultimate aim of your antagonist? Where is it going? And what are they doing to get there? Because it's likely not just chaos left, right, and center. There's probably a pattern that they're going through in order to get from A to B, right? So, like I said, with Fables, he's manipulating fate in order to achieve something. In a more simple example, it might be a warlord who is literally like almost like Dragonlance kind of campaign. Like there's an evil army like storming through the lands and is just wiping things out like a plague of locusts. That might be it. And so that would be then war would be your theme, or battle, or like something related to that. But that's pretty much where I would start without getting too into the weeds.
Right.
Right away. That's where I would start looking. The second place would be during the characters, the player characters, like interactions with the world, has there been something that's been recurring that they have been bringing up? And if that's the case, can you tie that to your big bad and then establish your theme?
So that is interesting. Has there ever been a time in your experience where the characters keep bringing something up that you haven't been able to figure out the connection to kind of the big bad and their motif, or like what they're doing, or does it always just kind of happen organically?
So I'm very loose with my ideas. I have like concepts, right? That I go in with. I know who my antagonist is. I know roughly what they're gonna do, roughly, in order to get to where they want to be to obtain the goal that I know they want to obtain. Outside of that, I don't really form any like hard like this has to happen, because that's not really how life would work. Sometimes people are going to do things that screw with your plan,
Yep.
and so you're going to have to adjust on the fly, right? Very much like a dungeon master. So I tend to keep my, and this is where theme comes in really handy, is I don't need to nail down so many details because I have a general theme so that I can keep the story moving along that flow. So I've not really hit any snags like where I'm like, oh my god, like this has become like a really big part of this story. How am I going to tie this in? It also might just be a side story, because the way I approach like storytelling through like group TTRPGs and things is very much like I have a storyline, an underlying storyline that's going to happen. It's just happening in the background. But the stories I'm trying to tell are the player characters' stories, because those are the way more interesting ones. Like, if I was going, if the whole story was about my big bad and the things they did and how awesome they are, then I would write a fucking book. Like,
Right.
do you know what I mean? So I find the nuance of diving into the player characters' stories way more interesting. Mainly because I don't know where it's gonna go as well. So there's that mystery as well. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Like, where am I gonna take this? As opposed to like, I already know what the other guy's doing. Like, that's just a given for me. So I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense too, especially because, at least for me, theme is picking this thing and then asking questions about it, and your characters are the ones answering those questions, right? And that's how I think, to me, that's kind of the interesting story, where who knows what the characters are going to say about XYZ. I think, honestly, one example, hopefully none of my players are listening to this in one of my groups, but I'm trying to make the story be a little bit about choice, right? And things being chosen for you and how you react to that. So I'm running the group through Out of the Abyss in the Underdark. And I've added in this element where these gods have essentially chosen all of the characters as their avatars, whether the characters like it or not. And I'm trying to see how the characters kind of fight against that, and how would normal people react if all of a sudden I'm this champion I don't want to be. I was expecting one of the characters, when he found out, to kind of, want to rebel and be like, no, I don't want to do that. But the player is like, yeah, my character's trying to figure out what it means to be honorable, and like, do I have to? And it super surprised me, because I was totally expecting him to like, nope, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to be my own dude. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing, where characters meet the theme.
Yeah, that's a really cool theme to explore as well. Like, it's almost dancing along those fate lines as well, right? But
exactly.
like the sort of chosen destiny, it's a slightly different take on it.
Yeah.
The unwilling hero
Exactly.
who has to kind of just figure it out, because if he doesn't, then shit's gonna hit the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. I did want to ask, when bringing out the theme, or I guess, how much is Dungeon Master volition versus the characters just naturally doing what they're going to do in your games, and how much would you recommend? Right? Obviously, we don't want 0, we don't want 100, but like, what do you think is kind of a happy medium?
So I really like, so long form campaigns. I really enjoy just taking a back seat and being the world, and just like delivering what happens in reaction to what the player characters do. That's what I enjoy. One of my highlights is describing a scene so well that it immerses my players so well that they're just talking and I haven't said anything in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then when I do have to say something, I'm answering a question about what's in the room, So I really like just being like, what you gonna do? And then having the world react to it. When it comes to, I guess, like shorter games, the short games that I have played that haven't been one shots have been like episodic streams. And so I've had, which is like another style of writing altogether, but I've had certain beats that I have to hit or the story isn't going to end where it needs to. The most recent one that we did for like that was we ran the playtest for Kids in Capes by Hunters Entertainment.
Right. You were talking about that last time.
Yeah. So we ran that, and that was a 4-part, I think. And so I had to hit certain beats at certain times and things. And so there was a lot more push from me there to like guide the players to somewhere or for something, or off table I might even be like to one of the players like, hey, I'm trying to think, I don't know, like I think I said to Masood, because his character was using keratin to create like copies of himself.
Cool.
And so it was like, oh, you should go, like, your hair's getting brittle, so you should probably go to like somewhere that sells like keratin treatments and things. And then get one of the girls to show you how to do it and things to up your keratin level so you can keep using your powers and things. And so that they went downtown, and so then I could lead into my downtown scene, which didn't end up with just keratin shampoo. It was they had to do something, but they had to get downtown to do it. So that's the kind of like little push that I will do, just because sometimes like if you try and be too cryptic, if you think you're being cryptic, the player has no idea what you're fucking talking about. Like, has no idea. Yeah. Because they can't see everything that you can see. So you're like, oh, I'm going to leave out this detail and this detail, and here, and they're like, what does that mean? So I always say the players will invent their own red herrings, so you don't need to overcomplicate it. But yeah, that's the only time that I give a little bit more push. With the long form campaigns, I do really enjoy just like I said, taking a back seat to the players, mainly because they tend to tie themselves up into way more interesting stories than I could just like come up with to try and force fit them into. Like with cities or new places, I have like a couple of like squares on a sheet of paper, and one of them will be the introductory description of the place to kind of set the mood and set the theme. I might have a couple of songs queued up that I'll play as I'm doing it, so they feel even more immersed in it. And I will do points of interest, so like places that they might want to visit. I will do there will be a quest of some kind at the place, even if they go somewhere where I don't expect them to go. I'll just come up with something that they have to solve, which will then sort of progress the story a little bit further. And the NPCs, their descriptions and their motives, and that's it. I don't like pre-plan any dialogue or anything like that. I do prefer to improv quite a bit because I like to react from the players. And I find that if I pre-plan too much, that would leave me flustered when things didn't go the way that I was planning them to. So if I go in there with no plan, then
you're already a step ahead, right? Because
yeah, exactly, kind of. Yeah. So, but having the motives of the NPCs, that will tell you how they respond. Like they might not have like bad intentions or anything like that, but you know, maybe they are, maybe they're a magic store owner, but their main concern is more like capitalistic. Like they're all about business and they're trying to make money. And so that influences their character, right? Because that's their driving force. So, you know, anytime that the store owner might have an opportunity to kind of rip them off a little bit, to get a little bit ahead, or, oh, you know so-and-so? I need to know them because I need to trade with them. Those kind of things. And that's where you get sort of the natural flowing dialogue and things. I don't know if I've gone off track. My ADHD meds wore off like an hour ago. So
no worries. So one question with that is, I love the idea of like the DM really letting the characters kind of take control and drive the story, right? And the DM is essentially just rendering the world. Has it ever happened where the party kind of gets stuck in the weeds for a second, right? They're in the tavern and, you know, they like they just keep kind of going around the same circles and nothing seems to be happening?
Yes. Yes, a lot. But you know, it's easy enough to have some kind of stimulus in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. That will lead to the story being progressed. So there was this one game that we were playing in this campaign where they were stuck in this port town, large tavern, tons of like trading and things going on, and you know, they had some heart-to-heart conversations and things, and then it was kind of like they were just doing things. And so I had everyone that was proficient in perception roll a perception check. And if they were high enough, I would have the players start overhearing conversations and like key things that kind of just like stuck out. And it's like, oh, you know, maybe they're talking about like a bad trade that went down, or you know, a string of crimes that have been happening and how weird it is, and you know, what do you think about this? And they can kind of earwig a little bit, and then that's enough to hook, like to pull them into the storyline.
I love that. Honestly, anytime the DM is just like, hey, make this check where you might learn something, even if the information is like, that milk's gone bad, the players are going to be like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with the town. Milk is cursed.
Something's wrong with the cows.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've talked about theme a lot. Obviously, at the beginning of the episode, we promised the listener we're going to talk about strong DMs. Aside from the messages people send you that are just really, really good, what makes a strong DM?
Makes a strong DM. Someone who is flexible. Um, they have to be like a captain, right? But or to like I guess it'd be better to like talk about it in terms of like like corporate stuff. But like what I mean is they should be like a manager should be. So like head of the team making the decisions, but they should be working as a team with everyone, and they just have the final say to move forward. I think that kind of attitude is really good. I think everyone gets to have a good time at that point. I think strong DM, someone who cares about everyone having fun and getting to tell their story at the table, including themselves. That should be a shared experience.
Maybe it might be easier. Like, what are some of the strongest moments in your DMing career where you're like, dang, I was flexing pretty hard right there?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So there's a couple things. So when I started DMing, I did what everyone did in like 2019, and I was watching Critical Role, and I was learning from Mr. Mercer himself, and I thought that's exactly what a DM should be, like exactly how he's doing it. I was like, oh, okay, like that's what it is.
Yep.
Which is fine for me because I come from like a voice acting and theater background as well. So I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then I kind of started changing how I did it. The longer I did it, the less I became someone who did an impression of someone else. And I just kind of took the things that I really liked and worked, and then kept going.
I like that.
And then I also adopted things from like when I got into like Dimension 20 and stuff, like stuff from Brennan and things. And I've since been lucky enough to hang out with the both of those guys and learn more. But when it comes to like really strong moments, something that I learned from Brennan, from watching Brennan, that I was like, oh, no, this is what I want to do, is lean in with the player. Like, oh, you're going to go down that road? We're going to go down it. And like almost play chicken with them as to how far they're going to go. Because there wouldn't be any guardrails in life. If you made a choice and started walking down this path, like, no one's stopping you. Like you're in control at that point. So, you have to recognize like what the consequences are, and still make a choice of whether you're going to back out or keep going. And if you choose to keep going, then we're still going. I'm not going to put a block on you. Because this could lead to something really, really cool. Yeah. It's actually one of the things that led to the short like addiction arc that we did with Ashley, who you had on here as well. Things like that. I didn't plan that at all, but it was actions that were taken, and I was like, oh, I'm so in on this, and just leaning in so hard. Because if you buck up against those actions, it kind of gets disjointed, right? Like, oh, I'm going to walk down this alley. Oh, a guard comes around and stands there, like with a big shield that covers up the whole alley. And it's like, would that have happened? Like, that's almost like video game-esque, which you kind of expect that in a video game. To be like, oh, I'm not meant to go down there yet. I'm not there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that is one of the big differences between D&D and video games, right? You can ask the NPCs questions that aren't in the normal responses, the NPCs in video games would do, right? and same thing with going down the alleys and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's exactly the same reason that I always plan their motive, because then that gives me a direction to go with the conversation. Like if I have that written down and that's their driving force, it's an NPC. There's not much depth to them. There's that sentence. Like that's what they want to achieve. So you just go with that. Obviously, if you have like returning NPCs and like big characters and things in the world, it's a little bit different. But for the most part, yeah. Yeah, leaning in with the characters is probably like to to not sound like I'm patting myself on the back too much, but that's probably my biggest strength is leaning in with the character. Because the other thing that you can do as well while doing that and while like walking down that road together is depending on the types of players that you have, is get into some really heavy emotional territory and have some really cool like role play moments at the table. Obviously the player needs to feel safe to do so, and needs to feel like when you lean in to them, you're not like pushing them. It's more like you're holding their hand and walking down that road with them, like we're going together. But yeah, the leaning in with leaning into the player actions, that's probably my favorite thing that I like to do. That ends up, I never regret doing it. Never regret doing it. It always comes out to some really cool moment or really cool storyline that I can then tack in later on.
Yeah. I love the description of holding their hand and walking into it together. It's very, very evocative for sure. Jay, I mean, it's been super fun having you here. We are coming up against our time, unfortunately. And you say this thing at the very end that makes me have all sorts of these questions of like, dungeon master and emotions and things like that. So maybe we'll have to talk about that another time. To finish off, give our audience some workout tips for becoming a strong DM, right? What are some exercises or an exercise that they can do to kind of strengthen their DMing?
It's one, it's got to be reps. You got to do your reps. Repetition is the way that you practice, and the more you practice, the better you get. Although you have to be willing to criticize your form. See,
I love this.
To be able to improve, so that the next time you get under the bar, you're lifting more efficiently, and so you're stronger the next time. How's that for carrying on a metaphor?
Man, I think it is perfect because it truly does apply, right? Everyone has had awesome sessions, and then fast forward 2 or 3 years, if you're still DMing, and then you think back and you're like, dang, how did I think I was such a good DM back then? Because I'm so much better now.
Shit, man. I was just talking with one of my players about like the early days of Fables and things, and I was like, yeah, I caught some on YouTube because I was like digging in through the old videos and stuff, and I was like, ooh, like that wasn't so good. But that was like 2 years ago, I've had a lot of practice since then.
Yep. That's the beautiful thing is every time you play, you can get just that much better, and it'll be fun in the moment, and also it'll be fun next time and the next time. So that's the goal, DM. Jay, thank you again for being here. Before you go, tell our audience how they can support you, reach out to you, and see what you're up to, especially because this year you released something new, right?
Yeah. End of last year, I launched Level 20 Training, which is it is a personal training platform, like from me to you, purely for tabletop players and DMs, like tabletop gamers, let's say, where I give you exactly what you need. I give you everything you need. The meal plans. I coach you on how to eat, what to eat, and things. If you need it, then you have meal plans laid out for you, and then we can take those steps. There are customized workouts. Everything is stored in the Level 20 app as well, which is a mobile app, which has exercise videos in it for everything that I set, as well as like write-ups from me, letting you know like what we're aiming for, what we're trying to achieve, how to judge things, and that's where I put a bunch of D&D puns in there. I don't do gimmicky workouts, but I will be a slave to the pun. And yeah, and then accountability as well, making sure you're on track. You get a video from me every single week talking about like your prior week, how it's been. You get a form every week to fill out to let me know how your week has been upstairs, mentally, how it's been. I get the data from elsewhere, but like that stuff really, really helps me on how to coach you. I do a lot of mindset coaching as well, like realigning with things like self-worth. And we've got a little private Facebook community as well. Just a bunch of dice rolling badasses, all trying to better themselves in a health and fitness way. But that's the Becoming Level 20 Facebook group. And there's more stuff to come that I can't talk about because I've signed documents. But there's external companies that we're going to merge with to make this even bigger for like both companies as well. But yeah, so I launched that at the end of last year. This year until the end of March, for Q1. I don't know when this is going out, but I'm running the Fresh Character Sheet program, which is everything that I told you about. Excuse me. But there's some offers and things to help you commit for like longer periods of time, especially if you've gotten the health kick like at this time of the year. Which lots of people do. And I've just tried to make it easier for people to jump in at the deep end and commit for a longer period of time up front. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all for escapism, but I feel like escapism should be moving from something to something different rather than going away from terrible, right? And, I love bringing the fantasy or the power fantasies into the real life, right? There's nothing to say you can't be as strong. Well, maybe not as strong, but you can't be strong, right? You can be just as strong as you want to be. So,
100%. In terms of like where you can find me, I'm Swole Initiative, SWOLE Initiative, which you can probably spell if you are listening to this, or at least know where to look it up. You can find me everywhere on the internet. I have long form stuff coming out on YouTube this year. I'm currently building up my bank of videos to launch. We're doing some challenge stuff as well as some tutorial things based on world building and storytelling and story writing. We're getting some friends involved with it. One of them, I'll let you in on one of them. I'm organizing, running every edition of D&D within 24 hours in a cohesive story.
What? That's pretty cool.
So there'll be videos watching me set that up and like kind of getting like a peek behind the curtains on what it takes to kind of set that stuff up. And then there'll be the live stream, which will be for charity. Because if you're doing a spectacle, might as well, right?
Right, why not?
And then, there's that stuff. And then, a couple of years ago, I started an actual play called Oops All Himbos. And, we'll be at various conventions this year. I know for certain that we will be at Gen Con and PAX Unplugged. I am waiting to hear back on a couple of others, but keep an eye on Fan Expo Chicago, which is midway through August, I think. And yeah, keep an eye on Oops All Himbos, because there's going to be a big thing coming out this year to do with all that. So yeah, that's all I'll say on that for now, but it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty cool.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, you heard it here, listener. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Go to Jay's platforms, his Level 20 app, and Swole Initiative Network, and just like dump all of the love that you can, because that really just lets know Jay. That lets Jay know that we appreciate him for coming on the show and giving of his time. But listener, we'll be back next week for another handcrafted episode just for you. Until then, let's go ahead and roll initiative.